So I added a duplicate of this layer and I just changed the blur setting, and I also changed the transparency a bit to try to make it like a shadow. It's not easy to add a natural looking shadow underneath a silhouette figure that you just put on top, so you'd probably have to darken out the bottom quite a bit. Once we add some layers of texture and color on the top, it's probably going to look okay. So let's do that now. First we'll just take some texture. And you want something that's going to darken the edges quite a bit and give it kind of a thrilling grunge effect. And I can just set that to multiply. With color, there's a few things you could do. I could look for some textured color that already has a lot going on. Like maybe this one. And this is just a background I found. If you search for textured background or desktop background wallpaper, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff. Usually if you are using this as a blending layer, then you don't have to buy stock photography, because most of the time when you add it in, it's not going to be recognizable. So I could do something like that, which you can still see the figure, but he's almost hidden. I mean, the color really adds a lot, and I might want to put this down underneath the other layers to make him stand out even more. But you can play with the blending and see what's going to look the best. Just give it a little bit of extra color and texture. That helps a lot. But I'm going to do some more. Another thing you can do is add a square and then set a gradient color. So let's say I wanted to do blue. And then I'm going to rotate it so the blue is on the bottom. So I'll just make this square fill the space. And so now I'm getting some really nice colors and a pretty strong glow effect. But I might even try adding some more. It's nice to blend in more layers and just kind of see how much depth you can get. That's really where the depth comes from. Maybe something like this one. And I'll just keep adding layers and keep blending them together until I get something that really looks good. That's more like a rainy effect. I like having a bit of light across the top like this. That might be too much, so I could go to transparency and tone it down a little bit, but having a little bit of light in the front I think helps. And I might even do another one just for fun. A lot of this stuff, it's really just kind of a feeling. All the layers of texture, they don't They don't symbolize anything, they don't mean anything, it just will make the cover look cooler and more three-dimensional, depending on what you add. But almost always adding some texture layers on top will just help it give it depth. This one's not really working though. And if you can't find a use for it, you can just delete a layer. And I can go back and see if I really need to use these or not. Or I can change the colors around. That one's pretty nice too. You might want to save a few. When you get something that you think looks pretty cool, you might want to save it as a JPEG so that at least you could go back later and add the text. Once you start playing around with this many layers and all these different transparencies and blending modes, it can be hard to get back to something that you made. And so if you like something but you can't find your way back there again, that can be frustrating. And I'm pretty sure, we'll try this in a second, but before we were having trouble saving really large files, but I don't think we have that problem anymore. And so part of that's why I'm putting in a whole bunch of different files to see if I'll be able to save it without problems. There's kind of too much colors in this one. It might be better without this top light. Yeah, maybe I'll just keep it like that. So I'd go over here to save project, and it's been taking about 10 seconds to save now, which is much faster than it was saving before. And so there you've got the file that you can save, and this has a whole bunch of layers in it, so it should be fine. You still want to be aware of how big your images are, and if you're duplicating a whole bunch of images, but this one has a lot of pictures already and it's still saving fine. So I would just save it as a project file and I'd come back to it later. I'm going to save this as a JPEG actually, because later we'll go back and we'll start adding text to all of these samples that I'm making. And so here's my JPEG file. I can just save as a man running